2026 is just around the corner and everyone wants to start the year being the healthiest that they've ever been. So there are multiple ways that you can do this, but I'm going to go through 5 ways that if you put the time, effort and money into it, they will give you the greatest return on your health. Now, there are multiple ways that you can go about improving your health. For example, not having any chemicals within sun cream, not having any chemicals in deodorant. However, the amount of money that you spend for the little health benefits that you get from them, you're probably better putting that time, effort and money into having whole foods, exercising, etc. So this is what I'm saying, is that there are more than 5 ways, but if you go about these 5 ways in a pragmatic way, they will give you the greatest health benefits. So the first one I'm going to go into is exercise. Now, I've recently went through a video about exercise. The biggest message or take home from this is consistency. If you improve the amount of movement that you are doing on a daily basis over at least 12 months or 10 years, you are going to see great rewards when you look back. So by just doing some movement every day, you're going to improve your health. However, if you want a backbone or you want to look at something as opposed to what you can work towards, then 150 minutes a week of aerobic training. I would say this is to be in zone 2, which is, you can look at a watch if you've got an Apple Watch, Garmin, and it'll give you the heart rate zones of zone 2. If you don't have that technology, which I don't use anyway, you can use something called RPE, which is rate of perceived exertion. Now, you can do this in 2 ways. One is if you are working out with someone, you can try and hold a conversation with them. And you should be able to do so, but it's not as easy as if I were to speak to you now at rest, but you can still hold a conversation. Or the other way is to try and nose breathe, where you can just about nose breathe before you need to go to using your mouth. So that's a good idea or indicator as to whether you're in zone 2. A lot of benefits come from this because it allows you to use fat as an energy source. It improves mitochondrial function and density, and also removes it's a fat burner. That's what it is. It's the fat burning zone. So there's a lot of benefits to zone 2 training. So 150 minutes a week is a good rule of thumb. The next one is strength training. Improving muscle mass has many benefits. So you've got the fact that it improves metabolic function. So when you look at diabetes and other metabolic dysfunction, it's due to a lack of muscle mass. Then you've also got power, strength and functionality. You want to still have the same movement and purpose that you do when you're younger, when you get into older life. Also, by having greater power and functionality, you reduce the chance of falling, which is a big risk factor the older you get. So building more muscle within relative terms, obviously building too much muscle will again put more weight on you. And I don't really know the science or the benefits of having too high of a BMI when it's even a large muscle mass. It's obviously going to be better than having a bigger BMI with fat mass. But I think there comes a point where being too heavy then puts too much strain on the heart, regardless if it is muscle and it is metabolically active. So strength training at least 3 times a week. That can be weight training, resistance training, body weight, something that forces your muscles to grow and puts them under stress. But you should do so in a safe manner and make sure that you are not prone to injury when you are carrying out these activities. Which leads on to the next form of exercise, which is mobility, flexibility, yoga. Something like that where it affects your balance or range of motion. Try and do that twice a week. And you can do that by obviously just trying to stretch on twice a week. Or you can follow programs on YouTube or Peloton, all these things where they've got instructors leading these programs. And the whole benefit of this is that you can then improve the range of motion, functionality within a certain degree. So again, it reduces your injury going forward. And when you put this in accordance with strength training and zone 2 training, you're going to see a great health benefit going forward. When it comes to exercise, you can do it relatively inexpensive. So you can have it where you train outdoors for the zone 2. Resistance training can be done at home, although it is more difficult, but then you can go and get a cheap gym membership. So there's not much money as an input into this. It's mainly time and effort. But if you do that, you will see many benefits, because in my opinion, exercise is probably the best thing we've got for improving longevity and improving someone's functionality and health span over the long term. Now, the second thing I want to discuss is diet. Now, in the West, we have a high amount of ultra-processed food within our diet. So by merely changing that into a whole food organic source will give you the greatest health benefits. And you should try and go from this ultra-processed ratio of maybe 60 to 80% and try and reduce that down to a maximum of 20%. And in this, you will see many benefits. Your energy will go up, the rate of inflammation will go down, the rate of disease or ill health will also decrease. So you'll see so many things from maybe spending an extra 20, 30 pound a week, which I know is not easy for some people, but however, they may have put that money into other things which may not reap them the same rewards. So by putting it into the diet, it will give them a greater amount of return in terms of health benefit. There are also key components of your diet that will lead to a greater benefit in your health. So when it comes to fiber, try and aim for 30 grams a day. By all means, if you're not having any at the moment, do not go straight from 0 to 30 grams because you will have many trips to the toilet, a lot of diarrhea and a lot of bloating and discomfort. Do so gradually over a prolonged period, maybe 3 to 6 months. Obviously go off what your body feels, but you should aim to try and do 30 grams a day. Try and have that from at least 30 different plants a week because that gives you different types of fiber. Going on to protein, try and aim for 1.5 to 2 grams per kilo per day. Now, try and obtain that from whole food sources, whether that be animal meats, whether that be from multiple plant sources. Try not to do it from protein bars, protein powders, because they lack fiber. They obviously have a lot more chemicals within them, which can negatively impact your body in the long run. And that's the same with anything. If you can get it from its actual direct source naturally, then try and do that. Obviously, if there are circumstances, so in terms of protein, if you are an athlete or you don't have the time or the ability to train whilst you're on a full stomach, then a protein powder or supplement is ideal in that circumstance. However, they are very, very niche circumstances and it shouldn't be applied to everyone. So protein, 1.5 to 2 grams per kilo daily. Then we've got fat intake. You should try and improve the amount of omega-3 that you have because your body cannot produce it. Reduce the amount of saturated fat that you have, and along with omega-3, try and improve the amount of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. So they come from avocados, they come from olive oils, all these types of food. Again, fat is not the enemy, it is just the types of fat and also just the amount of fat really. You just need to be mindful of anything because too much of anything is always going to be harmful to your health. You could have 6 litres of water within one sitting and then you could have a brain hemorrhage and multiple complications due to water, which is known as probably the healthiest substance on the planet because we are comprised of 65-70% of that anyway. Then going to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are essential for brain energy. So you can use ketone bodies, but the brain still wants to use glucose in some form. So if you do not ingest carbohydrates from your diet, your body will still try and make glucose through a pathway called gluconeogenesis. So carbohydrates have got this bad reputation that you shouldn't have them. Again, depending on your needs. If you are an athlete in terms of long distance runner, then carb loading the night before. Carbohydrates are really essential for your function and fitness. And there are many cultures throughout the world, so Sicilians where they have a lot of pasta, a lot of whole breads, etc., whole grains, where they've had a great base for longevity. So you need to take things in a group and not in isolation because it's quite hard to see the effects of individual components. But they're the main things for your diet. Incorporate more fiber, try and aim for a higher protein intake, try and improve the polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, reduce saturated fat. And then with carbohydrates, if you are going to have them, try and have them from whole grain sources, try not to have refined sugars. And if you are doing it, obviously try and map everything out with the energy expenditure that you're doing. Obviously, if you're sedentary, try and reduce the amount of energy intake that you're having because your body will naturally store all these things because that's what the body's been designed to do over multiple years. The next topic will be alcohol. Now, I don't drink alcohol anymore. It's coming up to 3 years. There are, from what I've read, no direct health benefits from drinking alcohol. And the government have even said this in the UK, but let's be honest, alcohol is such a big, massive financial maker for a lot of the UK economy. It's built, obviously, the culture's built on drinking alcohol. There's the bar scene, city centres, a lot of it depends on it. So that's why I think the government do allow these guidelines, which are 14 units per week, but then later go on to say that there's no safe level of drinking alcohol. If you need to include alcohol in your life, obviously I understand that there are certain occasions, culture, and there are different pressures, then by all means try and keep it to a minimum. If you are able to remove it completely, obviously do so safely because it's one of the only things where if you reduce it abruptly, then you can have seizures, comas, you can go into a lot of health complications. So you should do so in a gradual manner under medical supervision. But reducing the amount of alcohol that you do intake over a week, a year, etc. will give you greater benefits in your health in terms of productivity. Alcohol is a sterilising agent for a lot of procedures. We have hand gel, imagine what that's doing to your gut microbiome. There are a lot of health inequalities and defects that result from alcohol, not just from a biochemical point of view, but from relationships to psychological dependencies and inequalities that way. So in my opinion, I would stay away from it. I have done, so it's not something that I'm advising that I'm not doing myself. But let's go into the next one. So the next one is smoking and vaping. Smoking, a lot of people by now understand that smoking is inherently bad. There will be many people out there who will try and find a good aspect to smoking, and don't get me wrong, there are some medical conditions where if you smoke you have a lower incidence or recurrence rate of certain things, but it is not by all means healthy. So with smoking, if you stop at any point and do so as soon as you can, then you will improve your lung function. You will always get a benefit from trying to improve your health, no matter what age you are, whether that be 30, 50, 60, 70, you will always improve your health going forward. Vaping is relatively new, and there's a few things that have come out about vaping that I'm concerned about. Is that a lot of the products are not controlled, they're not regulated, so you don't know what's actually in them. Are they actually gonna have too much nicotine in them? Do they have other chemicals that have not been registered or made known to the public? Then you've got the actual devices themselves. A lot of them have exploded. They always have the potential to overheat. And from a clinical experience point of view, I've seen a lot of respiratory clinics now treating patients for lung diseases, lung disorders due to vaping. And they're in very young patients and cohorts. The youngest I've seen is 18. So I think over the next 5 years, you will see a lot of health inequalities and defects due to vaping. Now, vaping, in my opinion, has a benefit if you've been a heavy smoker through tobacco use and cigarette use, then you go on to vaping. I feel as though there is a health boost in comparison to cigarette smoking, tobacco smoking. But the issue is that because vaping is very appealing, it comes in all these flavors, it comes in different packages, it makes it appealing to people who will never smoke anyway. So by all means, they're just taking up this idea of vaping, and that's where the health defects are going to show, is that these people are not benefiting in any way. They think it's mainly due to social pressures and this idea that it looks cool. It doesn't. They're probably going to have a lot of health issues in the future, so I feel like if you can stop it, by all means do so. And I think a lot of studies will come out in the future to show that they are harmful and only beneficial to come off harder substances per se. Now, the last thing that you will get a lot of reward from is exercising mindfulness. So what do I mean by that? Stress management. How do you go about that? Easier said than done. So you can journal, try and put whatever's in your brain onto a piece of paper, try and rationalize a lot of things there, and also it feels as though you are communicating with someone or something, so you don't feel as though you're bottling a lot of things up. There's other things such as meditation, again, something I've never done, but I can see this idea that if you can remove yourself from your environment for 5-10 minutes a day, the benefits are going to be tenfold in what you think. There's simple things as well, such as detoxing from social media. I mean, the news and media in general, there are always pressures. So whether that be wars in other countries, whether that be financial concerns with the economy, whether that be someone in your friendship groups doing certain things, or family members could be impacting your life. It's constantly going on through your phone, so you cannot shut off like we could do 20, 30, 40 years ago, because you've got access to basically the world's information on one device. And the only way to stop that is by turning it off, deactivating certain apps. And I feel as though with a lot of people that would give them a lot of benefit. And the first place to start is look at your screen time. Now, my screen time is actually quite a lot, and I think it's mainly due to when I'm editing certain things and I'm posting on there, but I inherently don't spend a lot of time on social media for them reasons. It is merely a snapshot into people's lives. A lot of them are trying to portray this life that is rosy and unrealistic, really, which then can negatively affect other people. I'm not one of them where it negatively affects them, because obviously I can see behind the lens. I understand what's going on. Most of it is a promotional side to a business. I don't let that affect me. However, I can see how it does to other people. But like I said, try and improve your stress management, whether that be get up a bit earlier, attack the day yourself. Don't feel as though you're being coerced into other things. So if you've got work at 9 o'clock, make sure you get up to have enough time for yourself in the day, as opposed to getting up to get changed to go to work. There's a lot of things that you need to do, and I think the main thing is to make sure that you're the focus of your life, and then you can help other people flourish when you are functioning at your best. They are just 5 things that I feel as though if I was to start off on a health journey, they would be the things that I would invest my time, money and effort into. Exercise, diet, alcohol, vaping or smoking, obviously not doing these things, but obviously trying to remove themselves or augment exercise and diet. And then stress management. And don't get me wrong, that, like I said before, there are many things that you can do to further improve your health, whether that be to change dishwasher tablets, which we have at the moment, change them to a non-chemical based formula. You can change sun creams, you can change deodorants, you can change all these other things. But in my opinion, the cost that you're spending on them things, you can better use that cost and effort into other things that will give you greater benefits from your health in terms of diet and exercise, etc. And then once you've mastered them, maybe you've got enough financial ability or freedom to then go and improve the other aspects. You might gain an extra 1-2%, but by doing the 5 things I've said, you will probably cover 95% of your health. I've got to do this every time. It's a disclaimer that this is not medical advice. We haven't created a relationship, and you should always seek that from a medical practitioner that you are signed up with. If you do find anything interesting or you want to go through other topics, by all means comment on the video or send me a message. And if you've got this far, thanks for watching. Have a good new year, and I will see you next year.